I have logged 214 standard cycles as a navigator aboard interstellar vessels. I have crossed 17 contested sectors, survived 2 engine failures, 1 pirate interdiction, and a docking dispute that nearly started a minor war. None of that prepared me for the humans. Her name was Specialist Mara Johansson. She was 5'4", weighed approximately 60 kilograms, and ate something she called peanut butter directly from a container with a small flat tool. She smiled constantly, she asked questions constantly. She reorganized our entire emergency protocol system in her first week, and then apologized for it like she had done something wrong. Within 3 months, she had saved all of our lives. Within 6, she had changed all of them. This is my official account of what happened aboard the Kethavar drifter vessel, the Unbroken Meridian. During the cycle, we carried a human crew member for the first time. I am filing it because Command asked for a report. I am also filing it because someone needs to understand what humans actually are before they make the mistake of underestimating one. I will not make that mistake again. Let me explain how this happened because it was not voluntary. The Cathari Navigational Authority has a crew diversity mandate. This is a political arrangement brokered during the Third Compact Accords, and it means that vessels of our class are periodically required to accept crew exchanges from allied species. We had hosted a Velhari engineer once. Quiet, efficient, excellent with plasma conduits. We had hosted a drawn logistics specialist briefly. He lasted 11 days before requesting transfer because, and I quote, "The pressure of deep space navigation makes my secondary heart hurt." Humans were new to the exchange program. They had only been formal compact members for 6 years. Most of the older crews refused the assignment on procedural technicalities. My captain, Ren Davar, did not believe in technicalities. She believed in following orders and maintaining our vessel's compliance rating. So when the assignment came through, she accepted it. I remember the crew meeting. 12 of us around the central table, the blue glow of the star charts overhead. Captain Davar standing at the head, arms folded, expression unreadable as always. "We are receiving a human specialist," she said. "Her name is Mara Johansson. She is cross-trained in emergency response, environmental systems, and field medicine. She will be with us for 1 full rotation." Silence. Then Boreth, our weapons systems officer, a Tharuk standing 7 feet tall with 4 arms and the disposition of a thunderstorm, said exactly what we were all thinking. "A human on our ship." "On our ship," Captain Davar confirmed. "Those are the Deathworld ones," said Livy, our youngest crew member, a Cathari like me but fresh out of the academy, still wide-eyed about most things. "I read about them. They eat things that would dissolve our stomach lining. They exercise for fun. One of them apparently fought off a Karek beast with a piece of metal pipe." "That story is apocryphal," I said. "The pipe story is real," said our medic Sen, not looking up from her data console. I checked. She also broke 3 ribs in the process and finished her shift afterward. More silence. "She arrives at 600 standard," Captain Davar said. "Quarters are prepared in Section 3. I expect professional conduct from every crew member. Questions?" Boreth raised 2 of his 4 hands. "What if she reorganizes something? Then you will politely discuss it with her. What if she eats something alarming? Then you will look away. What if—" Boreth, the captain's voice was quiet. It did not need to be loud. "Professional conduct." He lowered his hands. "We were all in the docking bay at 600. Not because we were ordered to be. Because none of us could help it." The transport shuttle docked with a standard pressurization sequence. The airlock cycled. The door opened. And Mara Johansson stepped onto the Unbroken Meridian, carrying a bag that was almost as large as she was, wearing a standard-issue Alliance travel uniform, and smiling like she had just arrived at a celebration rather than a vessel full of strangers who were not entirely sure what to do with her. She was, by human standards, apparently unremarkable. Medium height, light brown skin, dark hair pulled back with practical efficiency, eyes the color of deep water catching light. She moved with a kind of easy confidence that was not aggressive, not performative. She simply moved like someone who was comfortable in their own body, which I would later learn is not actually common among humans either. Mara was just particularly good at it. She looked at all 12 of us standing in a loose semicircle staring at her. She grinned. "Well," she said in excellent galactic standard, "this is either a welcoming committee or an ambush. I am really hoping it is the first one." Livy made a sound. I believe it was a laugh quickly suppressed. Captain Davar stepped forward. "Specialist Johansson, welcome aboard the Unbroken Meridian. I am Captain Ren Davars. Captain. Mara shifted her enormous bag to her other shoulder and extended a hand. A brief pause. Cathari do not traditionally make physical contact with strangers. Captain Davar, to her considerable credit, shook the hand without hesitation. Human customs. She had done her research. I will have Navigator Voss show you to your quarters and walk you through initial orientation. This was news to me. I straightened slightly. Of course. Mara turned to me. She had to look up slightly. Cathari averaged about 6.5 feet. She did not seem bothered by this. Navigator Voss, she said. It's great to meet you. Fair warning, I am going to ask a lot of questions. I ask a lot of questions about everything. You can tell me to stop, and I will respect that completely. I considered this. I will inform you if it becomes excessive. Perfect. She looked genuinely pleased. That's a deal. We walked to section 3. She asked 14 questions before we arrived. They were all good questions. I have tried to explain humans to people who have not met one, and I always struggle with the same problem. Everything I say sounds like a contradiction. They are simultaneously the most exhausting and the most energizing beings I have ever encountered. They are relentlessly cheerful and capable of profound grief in the same afternoon. They form deep emotional attachments with alarming speed and defend those attachments with complete disregard for personal safety. They find everything interesting. Everything. Mara Johansson found our navigation charts interesting. She found our meal rotation interesting. She found the specific hum of our tertiary engine interesting, and spent 2 hours with our chief engineer Pell just listening to him explain it. Pell had never had anyone spend 2 hours listening to him explain anything. He was visibly unsettled and also clearly delighted. He talked for an extra 30 minutes after she should have left for her rest cycle. She asked follow-up questions, he told me later, with the expression of someone who had witnessed something miraculous. Real ones. She actually wanted to know. This was the first thing I noticed about Mara. She was genuinely curious. Not politely curious, not professionally curious. Actually authentically interested in things and people. It is a quality that sounds simple and is, I have found, extraordinarily rare. The second thing I noticed was her competence. On day 3, we ran a standard emergency drill. Pressure loss simulation in Section 2, cascade failure scenario. Every crew member had an assigned role. Mara had been given an observer position. She was new, we did not expect her to participate, just watch and learn our protocols. She watched for approximately 40 seconds. Then she quietly moved to the secondary environmental panel, identified the manual override sequence faster than I would have thought possible for someone who had never seen our system before, and began running a parallel pressure stabilization process that, as our systems officer pointed out afterward, cut the simulated response time by 31%. She had apparently recognized our system architecture as a variant of one she had trained on. She had not mentioned this. She had simply noticed a problem and fixed it without fanfare, without asking permission, and then stepped back to her observer position as if she had not just outperformed half our crew. You have done this before, I said to her afterward. Something like it, she said. Different manufacturers, same logic structure. Sorry, I should have asked first. I just saw what needed doing. Do not apologize, I said. It was excellent work. She looked mildly surprised. Like she had expected a reprimand. Like maybe she had been given one before for doing the same thing. I thought about that for a long time. The third thing I noticed about Mara Johansson happened at the end of the first week, and it concerned Boreth. Boreth, as I mentioned, is large even by Tharuk standards. He is also beneath the 7-foot frame and the 4 arms and the permanent scowl, a remarkably private person. He does not discuss personal matters. He does not acknowledge emotions. He has served on this crew for 9 cycles, and I know approximately 3 facts about his life outside of this ship. On day 6, I passed the common area and heard voices. Boreth's voice low and controlled, and Mara's voice quiet in a way I had not heard from her before. No questions. No brightness. Just listening. I stopped. I should not have listened. I am a documentation specialist at heart regardless of my navigation title, and I document things. Third one this season, Boreth was saying. It is not considered significant among my people. Young males go into service. Some do not return. It is expected. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, Mara said. Silence. No, Boreth said finally. It does not. I moved away. I do not know what happened in that conversation. I know that the next morning, Boreth, who had not voluntarily spoken to Mara beyond operational necessity since her arrival, brought her something from the nutrition bay. Tharuk have a morning custom. You do not grieve alone. Someone brings food. It is the oldest thing they do. He had made the human equivalent. Badly by all accounts. The protein content was wrong and the texture was apparently alarming. Mara ate the entire portion and told him it was the best thing she had eaten in weeks. We all saw his expression. None of us said anything. But I think that was the moment the Unbroken Meridian became a different ship. By the end of the first month, Mara had reorganized our emergency response protocols. She had not done this unilaterally. She had submitted a written proposal first. 14 pages. With diagrams. The proposal identified 11 inefficiencies in our current system, cross-referenced response time data from comparable vessels, and suggested specific amendments to each. She had also included a section called, What I Might Be Missing, in which she listed potential reasons her suggestions might not work for our specific crew culture and invited pushback. Captain Davar read it twice and approved the entire thing. Boreth, who normally resisted any change to operational systems, read the What I Might Be Missing section and then went to find Mara to discuss it personally. They talked for 3 hours. They amended 2 of her proposals together. Boreth suggested changes. Mara incorporated every one of them and cited him in the final document. She put my name on it, Boreth told me afterward. He sounded confused. He sounded like this had never happened before. I gave feedback and she put my name on the document. That is standard collaborative practice, I said. On human vessels, maybe. He paused. I like how they do things. I did not point out that he had spent our entire first crew meeting worried about her reorganizing things. The incident I am about to describe happened on day 34. We were in transit through the Helvan Corridor, a shipping lane with moderate traffic and a reputation for opportunistic piracy against mid-class vessels. We were not a priority target. We carried survey equipment, standard navigation cargo, nothing of significant value. We had made this run 14 times without incident. On the 15th run, we were boarded. The Wreck Pirates, a small organization, 4 vessels known for fast interdiction and non-lethal extraction. They take cargo, occasionally take crew members for ransom, and move quickly before response teams arrive. Violent when resisted. Generally efficient when not. They had a suppression device that disabled our communications and weapons systems simultaneously. Within 4 minutes of detection, they had breached our secondary docking port, and 6 armed wreck operatives were moving through our corridors. Standard practice in this situation. Comply, allow cargo extraction, minimize casualties, file a report after they leave. We had insurance. Cargo was replaceable. What was not replaceable was what they found in Corridor 7. Livy had been off-duty. She had not received the boarding alert in time. There was a notification failure in Section 3, something we identified later during the debrief. She walked directly into 2 wreck operatives while carrying a navigation update tablet and wearing no protective gear. They grabbed her. I want to be precise about the timeline here, because I reviewed the corridor footage multiple times in the aftermath. The time between Livy being grabbed and what happened next was 4 seconds. Mara had been in the adjacent corridor. She had heard the boarding alerts. She had, we later established, been moving toward the secure assembly point as instructed. Then she heard Livy's distress vocalization. She stopped moving toward safety. She turned around. What happened in the next 40 seconds is difficult to describe with full accuracy, because the corridor footage quality degrades during the suppression field activation. What I can document is this. 2 armed wreck operatives, each approximately the size of Boreth, encountered 1 human specialist who had no weapon. 40 seconds later, both operatives were on the floor. One was unconscious. One was making sounds that our medic Sen later described as deeply unhappy but not life-threatening. Livy was standing against the wall with her tablet still in her hands, unharmed and apparently in shock. Mara was standing between them, breathing slightly hard, with a cut on her forearm from a contact weapon and the expression of someone who was doing a rapid internal assessment of their situation. She looked at the camera. She looked at Livy. "Are you hurt?" she asked. Livy made a small sound. "I am taking that as no." Mara picked up one of the wreck operative's communication devices. I need to reach the captain. What is your internal frequency? Livy told her. By the time our crew reached Corridor 7, Mara had secured both operatives with their own restraint gear, transmitted their frequency signatures to Captain Davar to enable a countermeasure against the suppression field, and was sitting on the floor next to Livy with her arm around the younger crew member, talking quietly about something that had nothing to do with pirates. I found out later she was describing a place on Earth called the ocean. She said it was the biggest thing on the planet, and that standing next to it made every problem feel smaller. Livy was listening with complete attention. The suppression field dropped 6 minutes later. Our weapons came back online. The remaining wreck operatives withdrew. Captain Davar's voice came over the comms. All crew report ins. One by ones we did. When Mara's voice came through, calm and steady, Livy is fine, Corridor 7 is secure, I have 2 for medical processing. Captain Davar did not respond immediately. When she did, her voice was different. I have served under Ren Davar for 6 cycles. I have never heard her voice do what it did in that moment. Understood, she said. Good work, Specialist. There is a Cathari concept. It does not translate perfectly into galactic standard. The closest version is something like, the moment a stranger becomes crew. It is not a ceremony. It is not a formal thing. It is simply a shift, a recognition, collective and unspoken, that someone is no longer outside the circle. That shift happened for Mara somewhere between Corridor 7 and the medical bay debrief. Sen treated her forearm, which required 6 stitches by our method, and which Mara described as not bad at all while visibly gritting her teeth. Sen, who had been the most professionally distant member of our crew toward Mara until that point, our medic is thorough and cautious and does not trust quickly, worked in silence for a while and then said without looking up. The ocean. Tell me about the oceans. Mara blinked. Then she smiled. Not the broad arrival smile from day one. Something quieter. It goes on forever, she said. Or it feels that way. When you stand at the edge of it and look out, there is nothing but water until the horizon and then nothing but sky, and somewhere far out there the water and sky are the same color, and you cannot tell where one ends and the other begins. Sen finished the stitching. Does it make problems feel smaller? Always, Mara said. Every time. We do not have oceans, Sen said. Cathara is mostly highland plains. What does Cathara have that makes problems feel smaller? A pause. Sen set down her instruments and actually thought about it. The wind at the plateau edge, she said finally. At the end of the dry season. It comes in from the eastern range, and it smells like rain that has not arrived yet. Like something that is coming. Something good. Mara was quiet for a moment. That sounds beautiful. It is, Sen said. She sounded slightly surprised to be saying it out loud. Like she had not thought about it in a long time. They talked for 2 more hours. Sen did not have anywhere else to be. Mara did not either. Over the following weeks, I watched it happen across the whole crew. Not dramatically. Not all at once. Gradually, in the specific way that humans apparently do things, small conversations, small gestures, small consistent acts of attention that accumulated into something large. She learned everyone's home. Not just the species name or the sector location. The actual place. What it looked like, what it smelled like, what the person missed most about it when they were out here in the dark between stars. She asked and she listened and she remembered. 3 weeks later she would mention something specific. The festival Pell had described, the music Livy was learning, the food Boreth had talked about once in passing, and whoever she was talking to would look startled, then pleased, in the universal way of beings who have been actually seen by another person. Humans, I was beginning to understand, are extraordinarily skilled at making people feel seen. I do not know if they are taught this or if it is instinct. Maybe both. Maybe on a planet where everything is trying to kill you, you learn quickly to hold the people you have very close, and to make them know they are held. 2 months and 17 days into Mara's rotation, we ran into the Velhari storm system. I want to be honest, this was my fault. Not entirely. The storm system was not charted because it was new, a magnetic anomaly confluence that had formed in the previous cycle, and had not yet been flagged in the navigation database. I could not have known it was there. But I had noticed an irregularity in our sensor readings 3 hours before we hit the boundary edge, and I had attributed it to equipment variance rather than investigating further. I have replayed that decision many times. The Velhari storm system is, in simple terms, a region of space where magnetic fields from multiple stellar bodies create a cascading interference pattern. For a vessel like ours, it means navigation becomes unreliable. Communications collapse, and propulsion systems operate at between 20 and 60%, depending on where you are in the system at any given moment. It is not immediately lethal. It is, however, deeply unpleasant and potentially fatal if you cannot find your way out. We hit the boundary at 340 standard. Most of the crew was in rest cycle. The alert brought everyone to stations in minutes. I was already at navigation, running calculations that were not calculating correctly because the system itself was interfering with my instruments. Captain Davar arrived on the bridge within 90 seconds. She looked at my screens. She looked at me. Options, she said. I am working on it, I said. Which was honest and also meant I do not have good options yet. Pell was at engineering, reporting propulsion at 43% and dropping. Borath was at weapons, useless in this situation, but it is where he thinks best. Sen was in medical, preparing. Levi was running secondary calculations for me. Mara arrived on the bridge 2 minutes after everyone else. She had clearly been in deep rest. She still had the slightly unfocused look of a human transitioning from sleep. She looked at the screens. She looked at the data. She walked to the secondary navigation console without being asked. Voss, she said, what is your instrument reading for magnetic variance in the 0-30 degree band? I told her. And in the 31-60. I told her. She was quiet for a moment. Then the interference is not uniform. There is a lower variance corridor in the 15-22 degree range. It is narrow. Maybe 800 meters clearance at the tightest point. I checked. She was right. I had not seen it because I was looking at the system as a whole. She had looked at the seams. That corridor, she said carefully, leads where? I ran the projection. Out of the storm system in approximately 4 hours if propulsion holds. What is the risk? If propulsion drops below 30%, we lose maneuverability in the corridor and risk collision with the magnetic boundary walls. The interference at close range would be bad, she finished. Catastrophic, I said. She nodded. She looked at the screen for a long moment. Then she looked at Captain Davar. I can help Pell hold propulsion above 30. I know this engine architecture. I have worked on the civilian variant for 2 years. If he tells me what he needs, I can be his second set of hands in engineering. Captain Davar looked at Pell's station. Pell, she said, do you want hers? A pause. Then Pell's voice strained but clear, yes. Mara was already moving. What followed was 4 hours that I will not fully document here, because most of it was technical and the rest of it was terrifying. I will say this, navigating an 800-meter corridor in a magnetic storm by manual calculation with instruments you cannot fully trust, while your propulsion officer and a human specialist hold your engines together with what I can only describe as expertise and stubbornness. It is not an experience I recommend. It is also not an experience I will ever forget. At one point, propulsion dropped to 31%. I heard Pell's voice over the engineering channel, strained, describing a cascade failure in the secondary coils. I heard Mara's voice calm, telling him exactly what to do. And then I heard the propulsion reading stop dropping. At another point, the corridor narrowed beyond my calculations. I told the captain. She said, can you do it? I looked at the instruments I could not fully trust. I said yes. I did not know if that was true. I said it because the alternative was to stop, and stopping was worse. We came out of the storm system at 741 standard. Propulsion at 34%, 3 minor hull stress fractures, every crew member either exhausted or quietly not acknowledging how frightened they had been, which is essentially the same thing. Captain Davar stood on the bridge and looked at the clear space ahead of us for a long time. Then she said, report. We reported. Everyone was accounted for. Nothing was lost that could not be repaired. Mara emerged from engineering covered in something dark from the secondary coil housing, with a burn mark on her left hand that she had not mentioned during the crisis, and was attempting not to mention now. Sen found her anyway. Sen always finds things. Pell followed Mara out of engineering. This is a man who has worked alone by preference for his entire career. He stopped in the corridor and said to no one in particular, she knew what she was doing. It was the highest compliment he had ever given anyone. Mara heard it. She turned and smiled at him. Not the big arrival smile. The quiet ones. You told me what to do, she said. I just had good hands. Pell looked at her. He looked like he wanted to say something and could not find it. He settled for nodding once, which from Pell is approximately equivalent to a speech. The rotation was 3 months. That had always been the plans. 1 rotation compliance met, exchange program obligation fulfilled. Nobody talked about the end dates. This is something I noticed. In the Cathari crew planning system, rotation end dates are logged and displayed on the crew schedule board. Mara's departure date had been there since day 1. Somewhere around day 60, it disappeared from the board. I checked with Livy, who manages the schedule. She said she did not know how that happened. I checked with Boreth, who has no access to the scheduling system. He said the same thing. Nobody knew how it happened. The date was still in the official logs. We all knew when it was. We simply did not display it. On day 78, Mara found me at the navigation console during a quiet transit stretch. She sat in the secondary chair and was quiet for a while, which was unusual for her. I waited. Voss, she said finally. Can I ask you something? You always ask me things, I said. This one is different. She looked at the star charts. When I leave. Is this? She paused. Tried again. Will things go back to how they were? I considered this carefully. No, I said. She looked at me. Things do not go back, I said. That is not how crews work. That is not how people work. You came aboard this vessel and you were here, and that changes the shape of the space you occupied. When you leave, the space will still be shaped differently. She was quiet for a moment. That's a very Cathari way of saying you'll miss me. It is an accurate way of saying it, I said. She laughed. It was a good sound. Humans have many different laughs, and I had learned to distinguish them. This one was warm and a little sad and genuine all the way through. I'm going to miss you too, she said. All of you. I didn't expect. She stopped. I never expected this. What did you expect? She thought about it. Tolerance, she said. Professional courtesy. I thought I would do my job, not make any major mistakes, and go home with a completed exchange report. I thought I would be managed. Politely. We did intend to manage you politely, I said. I know, she said. I saw all of you in the docking bay. And yet. She smiled at the star charts. Boreth brought me food. And Sen told me about the wind at the plateau edge. And you explained to me for 3 hours why Cathari navigation philosophy is fundamentally different from human navigation philosophy. And I think that was the most interesting conversation I have had in years. I had not known she felt that way about the navigation conversation. I had worried I had talked too long. For what it is worth, I said, I did not expect this either. Good unexpected or bad unexpected. I thought about Corridor 7. About the storm system. About Pell's face in the engineering corridor. About Boreth's morning custom and Sen and the ocean. Profoundly good, I said. In ways I do not have adequate language for yet. She nodded. She looked like that was enough. We sat there for a while in the quiet of transit, watching the stars move, not saying anything else. It was one of those silences that does not need filling. Humans, I had learned, are also good at those. Day 91. The transport arrived at 900. We were all in the docking bay again. All 12 of us. This time nobody was pretending they happened to be there. Mara's bag was packed. Same enormous bag, same practical efficiency. She had also, I noticed, several additional items that had not been there when she arrived. Small things given by crew members. A Tharuk navigation token from Boreth, a traditional gift between people who have faced something difficult together. A small data chip from Livy containing, she had told me privately, every piece of Cathara music she could store on it. A medical reference text from Sen, annotated in Sen's precise handwriting with notes specific to human physiology. From Pell, a hand-drawn schematic of the Unbroken Meridian's engine, labeled in both Kethavar and Galactic Standard. He had never given anyone a schematic before. I do not think he knew he was going to do it until he did it. Captain Davar had something in her hand. A small disk, a command-level crew notation disk. She held it out to Mara. Mara looked at it. She knew what it was. Exchange program crew members do not receive these. They are for permanent crew. Captain, It is a notation only, Captain Davar said in the tone that means, do not argue with me about this. It is a record. It says that you served on this vessel. That you were crew. She paused. Because you were. Mara took the disc. She held it for a moment, looking at it, and then she did something I had not seen her do in 91 days. She did not say anything. The transport crew was waiting. She took a breath. She looked at all of us, one by one, the way she had looked at all of us since day one, actually looked at each specific person. Then she picked up her bag. She walked to the airlock. She stopped. The ocean, she said to the room without turning around. If any of you ever get to Earth's, go stand next to the ocean. A pause. It makes everything feel smaller. In a good way. She walked through the airlock. The door closed. The transport detached. We stood there for a while. Nobody moved immediately. Nobody spoke. Then Borath said, in a voice that was very carefully controlled, I would like to file a formal request to have the exchange program extended. I will add my name to that, said Pell. And mine, said Livy. Captain Davar was looking at the airlock. She did not turn around. I have already submitted it, she said quietly. That was 7 cycles ago. The exchange program extension was approved. We have hosted 2 more human crew members since Mara. They were different people, different personalities, different strengths. One was quiet and intense, and rebuilt our medical inventory system from the ground up. One was loud and funny, and could fix anything with his hands, and spent every off-hour teaching crew members games from his home region on Earth. Both of them were extraordinary. Both of them changed us. I have thought a lot about why this is. Why humans, specifically. Other exchange species have been fine. Competent, professional, adequate. Humans are not adequate. They are, I keep coming back to this word, and it is not quite right, but it is the closest I have excessive. They feel excessively. They care excessively. They try excessively. They refuse, in some fundamental way that seems almost biological, to be indifferent to things. And in a galaxy that has gotten very good at indifference, at professional courtesy, at managed tolerance, at polite distance, that excess is not a flaw. It is the most valuable thing I have ever encountered. Mara Johansson sent a message 4 cycles after her departure. It was not long. She said she had been assigned to another vessel and that she thought about us sometimes when she was on the navigation bridge, and the stars looked particularly large. She said she had found something near her new posting that reminded her of the wind at a plateau edge. Rain that has not arrived yet. Something good that is coming. She said she hoped we were all well. We were. We are. We are a different crew than we were before day 1. Not because of the corridors. Not because of the storm system. Because of 91 days of someone showing up and being present. Fully, completely, expensively present. Because of someone who learned every person's home and remembered it. Who brought honesty without cruelty and competence, without arrogance and warmth, without expectation of return. The disc Captain Davar gave her at departure. I asked the captain once what she had recorded on it. What the notation said. She was quiet for a moment. It says Mara Johansson. Specialist. Crew of the Unbroken Meridians. Citation for valor, citation for innovation, citation for service. She paused, and then it says she made us better. That is the notation. That is the whole story. If you are out there, Mara, the stars look large tonight. We are thinking of you too. End of file. Report submitted. Navigation log cycle 7 Voss recording. And if you believe that one person can change everything they touch, subscribe to Ironheart HFY. The galaxy has more stories like this one. We are just getting started.